Hi guys, this is Graham and today I'm going to teach you how to make elderberry wine, and this is the little beauties that we're going to make the wine with. I've just been to pick these off the trees. The best time to pick them is September or early October. Don't leave it too long because the birds have them and or they get overripe and sort of drop off. So you need to pick plenty of these. You need to pick about £3. And this is what I've done here. This is my £3 of elderberries, hopefully. But what you've got to do is get the actual elderberries off the stalks. And the way to do that is to use a fork. So there we are then. It's just a simple matter of getting your elderberries and pulling the fork through them and stripping them off the stalks. That's all there is to it. So when you've done that and you've got £3 in your basin, we get to the next stage. Right, for the next stage you'll need a plastic bucket of some description. Now I'm using a bucket that I use for my beer. It's special for fermenting, so that will be suitable. If you're new to wine making or beer making, you can get these from places like Wilco's, anywhere that sells homebrew equipment, homebrew shops, things like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put our elderberries, which I've stripped off the stalks as described, and we're going to pour them all in there. Now, like I said, you need £3 of elderberries. So that's sort of, I collected a good carrier bag full. So there's my £3 of elderberries. If you've got any little stalks or anything like that in there, I would take those out. As many as you can anyway. No need to be too fastidious about it. But yeah, so put your berries in there, and then what you need to do is mash it up. So I've got an ordinary potato masher. Just crush them as best you can. Crush them into the bottom there, get all the juice out. I suppose this is the equivalent of the old, when they used to walk on the grapes, tread the grapes to make wine. So we'll mash that all in, make it nice and get all the juice out of the berries. So there we are. I've crushed up all the elderberries, so we've got a nice juicy mixture there. Now don't worry that you've got the sort of husks from the berries, because we are going to strain it later, so we'll strain all that out. Now the next thing to do is to put some sugar in. Now the amount of sugar depends on how you like your wine, really. I just use ordinary granulated sugar, silver spoon. You know, other brands are available. So what if you want a dry wine, I would say probably £1 of sugar. If you want a medium wine, £2 of sugar, and if you want a nice sweet wine, which I'm going to have, you need about £3 of sugar. So put your sugar in there. This elderberry wine, it actually makes quite a nice sort of after dinner sweet wine. So I've used, that's a kilo there, that's 2.2 pounds, isn't it? So I'll just chuck a bit more in to make up my £3. I'm not measuring, I'm not weighing, I'm just guessing really. That'll do. So that's about £3 of sugar. Now we need to get some boiling water. So I've boiled about two pints of water. So I'm going to put that on there, onto the sugar and the oh, going a bit steamed up. Right, I've poured that on, and then the purpose of the boiling water is to dissolve the sugar. So give it a stir with a wooden spoon or a plastic spoon, You've got one. Give it a good stir to dissolve all that sugar. So when you can't feel the sort of grains of sugar anymore on the bottom of the thing, then that's when it's dissolved. Okay, so that's 2 pints of boiling water, don't forget. You need around 2 pints anyway, depending on how much sugar you've put in. Like I say, there's no need to be totally accurate with this. So there we are, that's dissolved all the sugar. Now we need to leave that now to cool down, and at that stage we're going to put the yeast in. So I'll leave that to cool for a little while. Right, so there we are, that's cooled down now. It's around about 20-21 degrees is ideal before you put the yeast in, otherwise the hot water will kill the yeast, and if it's too cold it'll also kill it. So what you need to do, excuse me sniffling, I've got a terrible cold. What you need to do then is put the yeast nutrient and the citric acid in. So you've got your yeast here. I bought that from Wilko, or you can buy it from any home brew shop or anything like that. I've put it all on the plate there. That's citric acid. That's to give your wine a little bit of acidity, and that's a yeast nutrient that will help to feed the yeast to make it work properly. So all we do is we'll sprinkle that on top of the mixture, and again then we'll need to stir it round. So give it a good stir to mix in the yeast and everything else in there. A good stir with your wooden spoon. There we are, that's all mixed up nicely now. Now what we need to do now is to leave that, cover it up with your lid, or you could, if you haven't got a bucket with a lid, you could put a cloth over it or something. So we're going to leave that now for 4 or 5 days just to get the fermentation started. Keep it somewhere warm. If you've got an airing cupboard, that's ideal. If not, somewhere nice and warm. I mean, don't put it out in the garage or anything if it's cold, you know. Put it somewhere nice and warm, perhaps in the kitchen or somewhere like that. And that will sort of start the ferment off. It'll be quite vigorous to start with. And then we're going to strain it into the demijohn, which will be the next stage. Right, so the wine's been fermenting now for 4 days in a bucket. So the next job to do is to strain it into a demijohn. So you need a demijohn for this. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I've got a plastic strainer there. It's better to use a plastic one. Don't use a metal one because that can infect the wine. Use a plastic strainer, or you could use a muslin bag. I've done that before. And strain the wine, the juice. It's not wine yet. The must, I suppose you'd call it, into the demijohn. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. So you need to squeeze as much juice as you can out of the berries. So that's what we're doing now. Just making sure we've got all the juice and all the goodness out of those berries before we ditch those. So the next thing to do is top it up with cold boiled water. So here we are then. I've topped up the demijohn with cold boiled water, and as you can see, that's now bubbling away quite nicely. That's the sort of thing that really you ought to be aiming for. The bubbles are coming through at a nice pace. Now, if the reason we do it we start it off in the bucket is because if you don't, you'll find that the ferment is too fast and it goes up through the airlock and out. So it's too vigorous. So it's a good idea to start it off in the bucket first to get that fast vigorous ferment over with, and then the nice steady ferment carries on after that, which you can see. So it's also a good idea just to fill it up to round about the shoulder perhaps of the demijohn, just to give that a little bit of room for the froth and the bubbles to come up there before it turns into gas and goes through the airlock. Keep it nice and warm. If you can keep it nice and warm, I put a towel around that because it is quite cold today. If you've got somewhere, a room where you can keep it nice and warm, that's ideal. If you can't, you can buy heat pads which you can put the demijohn on and plug that into the electric, and that will keep it warm. But that shouldn't be necessary if you've got a kitchen that keeps a sort of fairly constant temperature around about sort of 17, 18 to 20 degrees, something like that. That's ideal. So that will need now to carry on fermenting until it stops, really, until the bubbles stop coming through the airlock. So that can take sort of anything up to 5 to 7 weeks, something like that, 5, 7 or 8 weeks, depending on how fast the ferment's going. So there we go. So I'll leave that now, and I'll speak to you next time when the fermentation's stopped. Right, so here we are then. It's about 12 weeks since that started fermenting in the demijohn, and it's now stopped fermenting, so we've got to do the process which is called racking. Now that means just transferring it really from the demijohn that it's in into a clean demijohn with this rubber tube. But the sediment on the bottom, I don't know whether you can see that there, the sediment on the bottom needs to be left in that demijohn, so you need to rack it into the clean demijohn so that you leave the sediment behind. So the best thing to do is put the demijohn that you're going to put it in, obviously below the one that you're going to take it from. Take the airlock out, and then you need to put your tube in there. I like to do this with one hand holding the camera, but then it's just a matter of sucking the other end so that the wine starts to come through, and filling up your new demijohn. You probably get a mouthful, but it's not an unpleasant experience. So yeah, so just suck it up the tube, and then it flows down into the demijohn which you've got below the original demijohn, and that will be racked then. Right, there we are then. It's going down. Look, as you can see, it's all flowing into the new demijohn there. Obviously, you need to keep the tube above the sediment so that the sediment doesn't go into the new demijohn. So at the end when you're getting near the end, you probably need to tilt the demijohn, get as much wine as you can without the sediment. So there we are then. We've racked the wine out of the old demijohn, leaving the sediment behind, like I said, and it's gone into the new demijohn. Now you still need to put your airlock on, and you may find that it might start sort of fermenting slowly again. So just leave that now. Leave it in a cooler place now to sort of stop fermenting and to settle down and everything before you rack it again. Now you've got to be patient with this wine, because you need to sort of leave it another couple of months to rack it again, and then put it and then leave it again before you bottle it. So all in all, really, to make a good wine, it needs to be left for about a year. So we'll leave that now. I'll put that somewhere nice and cool, and we'll leave it to let it settle. Here we are then. Well, we've just about come to the end of our journey now with the wine, and this is a good part. Now, to me, I don't know whether you can see that. I have just hold it up to the light. You see how lovely that looks, crystal clear, and a nice red wine. So yeah, it's about a year ago now since we started this, so now's the time to see if what it tastes like. So I'll just give it a quick slurp. That does taste good. Yeah, that tastes very nice actually. You might want to, at this stage you can, before you bottle it, I mean I've not bottled this yet, but you can, if you want to, you can add some sugar to make it a little bit sweeter, if it's not quite sweet enough. So yeah, it's very nice. So give that a go. It's worth it. It takes a while, but it's worth it. It's a nice wine, that is. Elderberry wine, homemade, and at least you know what's gone into it. Cheers everybody.